Hello, and welcome to Nightlight's orientation to Samoa's adoption program. Once you view this video, a follow-up phone call will be scheduled with one of our Samoa team members to allow you to get to know us better and to answer any questions you may have concerning this material. When you received the Samoa orientation email, you probably noticed it had many links to additional information. I urge you to save that email, bookmark it, print it, do whatever you need to do to keep it, because you will be required to access the checklist as you complete your parent education and prepare your dossier, and may need to refer to some of the information. In order to access the checklist in our portal, you will need to sign in using the same email and password you created when you initially filled out your application. There is a link posted here and in the email for password help should you require it. We will be discussing several items to help you get started on your adoption journey, and hopefully by the end of the talk, you will have a better grasp on what is required and an idea of where you need to start. I promise you might feel overwhelmed, but there are ways to break the process into parts so it seems more manageable. Today we will go over Hague orientation topics, talk about choosing a home study provider, touch on parent education, discuss filing with the I-600A, with the USCIS or United States Citizenship and Immigration Services, explain the service plan and dossier instructions for Samoa. I will begin by introducing myself and telling you a little about our agency. My name is Samantha, and I've worked in the field of adoption for about 2 years now. Currently, I am a program coordinator of the Indiana office and assist with the Samoa program, which is managed from the Indiana office. Nightlight has been in operation since the 1950s, in addition to many international programs. They also offer domestic adoptions, home study services, foster programs, and pioneered the Snowflakes embryo adoption program. The Indiana office was formerly known as MLJ Adoptions. They had many programs throughout the world and chose to carry some of those programs over to Nightlight in March of 2020. The best way I've found to go through the documents is to have you open the Samoa orientation email, open the orientation document checklist, and I will go through each document explaining its purpose and talking about specifics. Please be sure to write down any questions you may have so that our Samoa staff can answer them during our follow-up phone call. The first document I want to talk to you about is the Hague orientation topics for Samoa. It's important that you read this document thoroughly, but I am going to hit some of the highlights. Anyone who is adopting internationally must have an approved home study, apply to receive pre-approval to adopt from the U.S. through United States Citizenship and Immigration Services, and prepare a set of documents called a dossier, which must be submitted to Samoa for approval. Your dossier tells the adoption authority in Samoa about you and your family. Different countries require different documents, so that is why the dossier instructions are specific to Samoa. Most children awaiting adoption in Samoa are institutionalized. A lot of orphans around the world are also in foster care. However, this doesn't apply to Samoa. There are different types of fostering situations which are described in the Hague orientation topic document. Anytime that a child is in less than optimal care, they are at risk for malnourishment, delays in any or all areas of development, unhealthy living conditions, sickness, and abuse that may include emotional, physical, and/or sexual abuse. These children have trauma in their backgrounds from abandonment, inconsistent caregiving, and substandard care. This is why parent education is an important part of the adoption process to help prepare you and your child's needs for when they come home. Children awaiting adoption may reside in a shelter named SBSG in Samoa. In general, children residing in these shelters in Samoa are considered to be well cared for and fairly healthy. However, it is a general fact that children being cared for in orphanages are typically given less than one-on-one attention and could develop attachment issues. They are Also more likely to be delayed in development. Families should expect that a child will be approximately 4 months delayed for every year that he or she is in an orphanage setting. The most current laws and adoption processes from Samoa can be found on the Department of State's website. Eligibility requirements can be found on the U.S. Department of State website as well. The eligibility requirements change from time to time, and Nightlight remains updated at all times. It is one reason that our application asks so many questions. We want to ensure that you are eligible to adopt from the program that you desire. The trend in climate of inter-country adoptions has declined almost 70% by 2004. The reason for this decline is a result of the shift in political acceptance of inter-country adoption. Most nations navigate two opposing forces, trying to accommodate adoptive parents and the needs of orphans while also satisfying powerful anti-adoption influences. The increasing difficulty in adopting internationally is actually intentional and meant to reduce the number of adoptions. The motive behind the anti-adoption movement is complicated, but includes national pride, political retaliation, and a well-meaning but naive desire to prefer indigenous orphan care solutions. It is important to note that our agency has no control over the rate at which referrals are made by Samoan adoption officials. While many children with special needs are available, agencies have no control over the children that are made available for adoption. Your openness to gender, age range, and various medical conditions will affect the length of time that you may wait for a match. The more open a family's criteria for their child, the more quickly they will be matched compared to families who request a very young female with minor special needs. Finally, you'll need to travel to Samoa after your adoption is completed in country. Please read over Department of State's website to prepare for the one-time visit to pick up your child and bring them home. Adoption travel can be expensive depending on where you book the flight. Our team will assist you with this as well as your travel plans regarding lodging, transportation, guides, and translators. Now let's talk about post-adoption reports. The post-adoption requirements are a report at 6 months, a report at 1 year, and then a report at 24 months. In addition to this, Nightlight also requires a one month report to be completed. Adoption obligations should be taken very seriously. Our agency is held personally responsible for the supervision of your placement. It is very important that you comply with reporting, as adoption programs are placed in jeopardy when families do not fulfill their obligation. Failure to complete post-adoption reporting puts our program at risk and may prohibit future families from adopting orphan children. Please take note that we have very strongly worded language regarding post-adoption obligations and agreements in the agreements that you have already signed for our agency, which allows us to take you to court for noncompliance. While we haven't had to file a court case, we had send letters reminding families of their promise. It is also important to note that the U.S. Department of State enforces post-adoption compliance. Failure to comply will also affect any plans you have to adopt in the future. One last thing regarding Hague topics. Fees should never be paid to a foreign supervised provider, an adoption central authority, or any person involved in your adoption case in a foreign country without written permission from your Nightlight coordinator. Historically, this has not been a problem with Samoa, but if you are asked to pay any fees in country that are not outlined on your adoption fee schedule, please notify our office immediately. Bribes are strictly prohibited and will be reported to the U.S. Department of State. I've gone over most everything in this document. If you have thoroughly read it and understand it, you can sign it electronically, date, and submit. Of course, if you have questions about any of the content, be sure to ask those during the telephone follow-up. Next, we will talk about choosing a home study provider. Nightlight is your placing agency for Samoa. If you live in a state where we have an office, we will also be your home study agency. If you live outside our office area or service area, you must choose a home study provider. It is imperative under Samoa rules that your home study agency is Hague or COA accredited. If you live in a state served by Nightlight, you will soon to be contacted by that office to begin the home study process. If you do not, there is more information to help you locate a Hague accredited provider in the orientation email. You can click on the link where a list of Hague accredited home study agencies are listed by your state, or you may contact Natalie, the social services assistant in our Indiana office, and have her give you a list of home study providers we have worked with in the past in your state. Her contact information is listed in the orientation email. Finally, once your application has been accepted by the home study provider agency, please complete and upload the home study provider information sheet in the International Orientation Checklist. It is very important that you return this before you begin the home study process. The first reason is because Nightlight must have an exempt provider agreement in place with the agency prior to beginning the home study. And secondly, we will ensure the home study is Hague accredited. This is a very important note. If you begin the home study process prior to providing Nightlight with your home study provider information, you may have to choose another provider, which could result in losing any monies you paid to the previous provider. Once your home study is completed, which can take anywhere from 2 to 4 months or longer, depending on how quickly you and your social worker are able to obtain documentation, you will be ready to file Form I-600A application for determination of suitability to adopt a child from a convention country with USCIS. The link to that form can be found here. However, if you have read the Dossier Instruction Guide, you will know that the Samoa team will mail you the current link to the form with instructions to help you fill it out, and we will do that once you are ready for this step. With that being said, you really don't need to do anything with this document. It is just a link to a form you will use later in the process. When you received the orientation email and opened the portal, you had access to an orientation document checklist as well as separate checklists for international parent education documents. A link was provided to a webinar explaining Nightlight's parent education requirements. If you have not yet watched this, you must, so that your parent education will not be delayed. As a recap, all adoptive families are required to complete 10 hours of Hague education prior to completing their home study. In addition, Nightlight has additional requirements that consist of reading about and understanding post-adoption stress and depression, completing a post-adoption support plan, learning about the history and culture of your child's country, speaking with a parent who has previously adopted a child from Samoa through Nightlight, and reading a book titled The Connected Child. You will end up with more than 10 hours of education to help prepare you for parenting the adopted child. The next document I want to bring to your attention is a child preference form. This is a document that is used to identify your preferences for a child as to gender, age range, and medical needs. It is important to understand that this document may be updated throughout the process to adjust your preferences as you continue being educated about adoption, talking to others who have adopted children with specific needs, and meeting with medical professionals to determine what you feel that you can handle. This form is used by your social worker in writing your approval statement from the home study and by the Samoa team as we watch the shared list for children. The service plan is a document that identifies 6 adoption services that are rendered in intercountry adoptions and who is responsible for each service. Nightlight Christian Adoptions is your primary provider and placing agency for a child from Samoa. As the primary provider, we will coordinate your adoption, help identify a child for adoption, and arrange for the adoption. We will also work with the agency providing your home study and coordinate with the staff to provide translation and travel arrangements in Samoa. As your primary provider, Nightlight is available to assist you whether you are in the United States or traveling abroad. We will be working with the central authority in Samoa known as the Attorney General. They are responsible for identifying children who are available for adoption and arranging the adoptions, securing the necessary paperwork showing termination of parental rights in agreement to adoption. In Samoa, the majority of children eligible for adoption are abandoned. The Attorney General approves the child's background study, and your home study provider will perform the home study on you as the prospective adoptive parent. You will not have direct contact with the central authority in Samoa. The Attorney General works with our in-country coordinator to ensure that the laws of Samoa are being followed with regard to adoptions. On this form, please fill in the name of your home study agency and their phone number, as well as the social worker from that agency with their contact information. Nightlight and your home study provider make non-judicial decisions and determinations of the best interests of a child and the appropriateness of an adopted placement for the child. The Attorney General, in conjunction with Nightlight, will monitor a case after the child has been placed with your family until final adoption. Also in this document is a list of contacts at Nightlight who work in the Samoa program, as well as their email addresses. Currently, I am the program coordinator for Samoa. Sonia is the international program director, and Natalie is the social services and home study assistant who will work with education and post-adoption requirements. Depending on what state you live in, you also work with Angela, which is our home study worker for our Indiana clients, or Debbie for out-of-state clients. Again, they are assisting in completing your home study, reviewing it, writing it, things like that. Your adoption will be finalized while you are in country, and when you return home, you will be expected to continue to work with your home study provider to complete post-adoption reports. Your home study provider will visit you at specified times following the adoption to provide consultation on adjustment, help you identify or problem solve any issues that have arisen, and write a report to send along with photos of your child to Nightlight, who will then forward them to the Attorney General. Nightlight also requires families to comply with a 1-month check-in. It is important to know, and you will be reminded of this throughout the process, that if you are struggling with your adoption plan or having adjustment issues with the child when you get home, please contact us and let us help you identify sources and rally your family, friends, church, and other professionals to provide support and guidance to you. We have a post-adoption center ready and willing to provide resources to our families. Once you fill out your home study provider information to this document, please sign and date and upload to the portal. The last thing is a dossier instruction booklet. I trust that you are able to read through the booklet, which touched on some specific items. I encourage you to be in contact with me to discuss any questions you have about the dossier instructions or documents, as I will be working with you through the USCIS approval and dossier phase. To wrap up the orientation, I want to remind you of the checklist on our online portal with some orientation documents that you need to either sign and upload or sign electronically. Be sure to watch the video explaining our parent education requirements and look at all of the parent education documents under the International Parent Education Checklist in our portal. It is also important that you read the entire booklet, which contains more specific information about the dossier. So you're probably wondering, where in the world do I start? What do I do next? My suggestion is to first talk to agencies who are Hague accredited who can help complete your home study. Once you contact them or have a contract with them, you can finish the service plan and home study information sheet in the orientation checklist. Make sure that they are approved as your home study provider, and then you can begin your parent education. Do not forget to submit documents as they are completed. In addition, we always want you to feel free to contact us with any questions, comments, or concerns you have. This concludes the webinar. Please email me, Samantha@nightlight.org, after you have watched all the videos and are ready to begin a follow-up orientation phone call. Thank you and have a great day.